back, everyone. The iPhone 13 and the 13 mini are amazing iPhones, and interestingly enough, they have the same exact camera. So I went ahead and took photos of my iPhone 13, and I took photos of my iPhone SE 3, and I wanted to see how these photos compared. Now, some hardware differences. Of course, the iPhone 13 is the better camera here. I'm going to tell you in every single area. The iPhone 13 has a dual camera setup on the back, a wide and an ultra wide sensor, but you can also do 4K at 60 on the front and the back of the iPhone 13. But you can also utilize that cinematic mode, which is really cool, and I'm really happy for that. The iPhone SE 3, on the other hand, has that single wide angle lens. You can do 4K at 60 on the back. You can only do 1080p on the front, which is kind of a downside if I'm being honest. I like the ability of just, being able to just film whatever I want to in any resolution. And although they both don't support 8K, the 13 is the better one here for sure. So the way I took these photos, I took them in the exact same lighting conditions at pretty much the exact same time. Nothing really different there. So all the iPhone 13 photos and videos, photos here will be on the right. The iPhone SE 3 photos will be on the left. So you can see immediately if I just go and zoom into the 13 photo that there are, I think, a few differences, but they're very, very few and far between. You won't really see too many crazy differences if you're using the outside, if you're using really good lighting, basically. So if I go and zoom into this leaf right here, I really can't tell too many differences. The first thing I thought is maybe the iPhone 13 has somewhat of like like a darker filter over it. The color kind of looks a little bit better on the iPhone 13, but they are so similar, I can't really tell too many differences if I'm being honest. Now, if I go and zoom in over here, for example, let's just take a look. Again, I don't really tell too many differences, which is good. They have the same chipset inside, so I'm hoping there's like some similarity with the iPhone SE 3 camera because Apple did state this camera was so much better. Looking here, you can see that it kind of looks like that the iPhone SE 3 kind of did a better job at kind of keeping this portion in focus, with the iPhone 13 kind of blurred it out a little bit. So that's kind of interesting. The background looks about the same. I don't think one looks way fuzzier than the other one, but the first photo, I would say the SE 3 kind of looked pretty good, but I think the 13 may look a little bit better. This next photo was of an indoor portion, nothing super crazy. Zooming in here, I don't really tell too many crazy differences here. If I go and zoom into like the top portion right up here, let's see if there's any differences. And again, I'm not really seeing anything. They both look good, which is great. Neither of these photos look bad. One thing that I'm kind of seeing though is if I zoom in right here, I can kind of see a little bit that the dirt seems a little bit darker on the iPhone 13, but even there, you're not going to see those many differences when you're just like looking at them side by side. So even for me to having to like zoom in so much to these photos and barely seeing any differences is pretty good. But again, we're only looking at one specific portion. We're not looking at, the video resolutions they're filming, and we're not looking at certain other things so far right now in this camera comparison. Now this next photo I took in really, really bad lighting. I wanted some horrible lighting conditions, and I just went ahead and took this photo. And again, I actually do think they're more or less the same. There's not really too many differences here either. If I go and zoom into like this portion here, again, they both look kind of the same. I will say the iPhone 13 looks a little bit better because it just kind of looks a little bit less glossy compared to the iPhone SE 3. If we go and zoom into like this portion right here, again, I'm kind of seeing the same thing. There's not really too many differences here, which again, I think is a good thing. You don't want to really like get super crazied out and have like really weird photos on both. And these ones do a really good job at pretty much both the photos that we've taken. Now this next photo, again, taken outside. And one thing that I saw is, again, both these photos look great. I want to say that they are almost identical. If I didn't know which one was which, I would probably think they're almost exactly the same. Now zooming into some colors here, for example, if I go and zoom in here and if I go and zoom here, again, I'm looking at them. I don't think one looks way crazier, but I do think the SE 3 did a kind of a better job at the filtering, I think, of the leaves. So for example, if I go and zoom into like this leaf right here, if I go to zoom into this leaf right here, it kind of looks to me that, so there's two different things going on here. I think the coloring looks a little bit better on the iPhone SE 3, but the bokeh effect on the iPhone 13 is so much better. You can see that it blurred out almost the background completely, which is really, really nice. Unfortunately, the iPhone SE 3 didn't really blur out anything in the background. And again, I tapped to focus on all these photos as well in the same spot. So there should have been a bokeh effect, theoretically on the background of this one. Unfortunately, we did not get that. On the iPhone 13, on the other hand, we did get it, which is a really cool thing. So in terms of the outside of these photos, definitely the 13, I think, won overall. Now this next photo, again, taken in pretty poor lighting, and I just kind of wanted to see how they would look in some really weird lighting condition. One thing that I've been seeing is like with this bulb back down here, you're not really going to be seeing too many crazy differences, but again, one thing I'm constantly seeing is that the iPhone SE3 is kind of blurring out some of these, specific photos. They have the same megapixel count, but they're blurring out some, not key details, but some things you would normally see maybe in another photo. So you can see right here with these bulbs, it does look a little bit better on something like an iPhone 13. You can see these bulbs a little bit more intact. And also, if you look at the flower up here, I think it looks a little bit better on the iPhone SE3. It doesn't really look great on both, but the iPhone 13 looks better here than the iPhone SE3. Is it a big deal? Not really. I mean, unless you're like zooming in as much as I am. But if you're not, then you're not really going to be noticing these big of differences, to be completely honest. Now, this next photo, again, I took outside, and luckily, again, we don't really see too many crazy differences. And I will say the iPhone SE3 is doing a much better job than I would expect it to, at least in these photos. But again, we are seeing some slight differences. If we go and zoom in right here, one thing I'm seeing is that the SE3 did a great job at kind of brightening the photo. I can see on the iPhone 13, it looks a little bit more grainy. It looks a little bit darker too, which isn't always the best thing. The iPhone SE3 here definitely looks a lot better here, which is really, really good. And those are some things that I really like seeing on both these iPhones. Now, the next photo is one of my favorites. I just pretty much take it of this, whatever this is, the stem on the back. And as you can see, again here, pretty much the same type of thing. I mean, I have to zoom in really like long, or I have to zoom in a lot in order for me to even start seeing some differences. And even here, I'm not seeing those crazy big differences as I would expect before. And I think the iPhone SE3 kind of did a better job somewhat if I zoom in here. I mean, it looks like, I don't know, the 13 maybe didn't focus in on the right area. I'm not really too sure what's going on there. But with something like the iPhone SE3, you can see it focused in exactly where I wanted it to focus in on, and the background is blurred for the most part. The 13, on the other hand, I'm not too sure. It looks like it kind of blurred out, but then not really. So I'm not really too sure what's going on with this phone. Zooming out though, you're not really going to be noticing those big differences like I've mentioned before. And both photos are great, but I am pretty sure that the iPhone SE3 in this specific photo looks a little bit better than the iPhone 13 in my opinion. Now finally, we have probably one of the bigger differences if this photo would change, and this is portrait mode. Now the iPhone SE3 does not have portrait mode on animals, so that's a big thing to keep in mind. If you're trying to take portrait mode photos of your dog or something, well, it's not going to work on the iPhone SE3. On the iPhone 13, on the other hand, you can see it actually works. So again, this is a big deal for some people out there, because if you're trying to take photos of your animals, well, you're going to have that capability on the iPhone 13. The SE3, it didn't detect the animal. I'm sure there still could have been a bokeh effect applied, and I'm sure it would be very similar to the iPhone 13. However, because it doesn't support animals, it only supports humans, it does not give us that option. So if we look at the top right corner right here, you can see just how great the iPhone 13 photo looks. It completely blurs out the background. The plant or pod in the background is completely blurred out, but the iPhone 13 keeps, for the most part, there's still a little bit cut out on the ear right here, but it keeps the whole entire, subject in center and in focus, which is nice. The background is completely blurred out. On the other hand, on the iPhone SE3, not the case. I would say the animal looks about the same. The stuffed dog looks kind of the same, on both in terms of coloring and everything, but the background does look kind of blurred out a little bit more on the iPhone 13, which is expected than the iPhone SE 3rd generation. So that kind of takes us to the end of the video, and to be completely honest, I definitely do think that the iPhone 13 is the better camera here. And we just looked at the back camera. If we looked at the front camera, if we looked at all the photos and videos in general, even Snapchat quality, different things like that, the iPhone 13 is definitely going to take the cake. It is a much better camera than the iPhone SE 3, and like I mentioned, if you're trying to get the best camera quality of all time, well, you're really going to have to learn how to edit photos and different things like that. But from a stock perspective, not having to edit any photos or not having to edit any videos, you are going to be getting a solid experience on your iPhone you're going to be getting a solid experience on your iPhone 13. Now, the SE3 is not a bad camera. I think it's completely usable. Obviously, it's not like a horrible, unusable camera, but you're going to be getting a better experience, like I mentioned, on an iPhone 13. And if you can go up, the 13 Pro is going to be better, the 13 Pro Max is going to be the best, and those are the ways to kind of think about it. The SE3, perfectly fine. If you're not planning on, filming or editing a bunch of videos, or, not having to, rely on this as your only photography device, well, then you're probably going to be okay. But if you want the best quality, going up to the iPhone 13 in this case is definitely going to be the better way to go. So that kind of covers it. If you have any other questions or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.